Guys, John chapter 18, the betrayal and arrest of Jesus. When Jesus had spoken these words, he went out with his disciples across the brook Kidron, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. And now Judas, who betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. Guys, I went to this garden. I was there in person. They even have the area marked off where they believe Judas betrayed Jesus. It is a surreal experience to be in the place where this story took place. So, Judas, having procured a band of soldiers and some officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Guys, it says in the Mirror version that Judas was given a Roman military cohort of about 600 soldiers to accompany him. They came together with temple officers from the chief priests and Pharisees with torches, lanterns, and their weapons, guys. This is not 2 or 3 guys finding Jesus in a small corner. This is hundreds of people, a Roman cohort, 600 estimated. Coming to get Jesus. And it says, so Judas, having procured a band of soldiers, officers from the chief priests and Pharisees, went there with their lanterns and torches and weapons. And then Jesus, knowing all that would happen to him, came forward and said to them, whom do you seek? And they answered him, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus said to them, I am he. And Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. And when Jesus said to them, I am he, they drew back and fell to the ground. Can you picture it, guys? Can you picture maybe even being a soldier at the time, one of the chief priests and Pharisees, who knows? You're on the hunt for this Jesus. For all they know, this guy's trying to uproot their very way of life. Going around, traveling to people, speaking to people, doing miracles, all these other things. And they find him in person. And when he admits and reveals himself, I am he, they fall back to the ground. They're shook. They're shook. They never knew this would happen. My goodness. That's what happens, by the way. As he come after Jesus. There's a lot of symbolism there when the darkness finds the light. See, they've shot back in fear. So they drew back and they fell to the ground. So Jesus asked them again, whom do you seek? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. And Jesus answered, I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go. And this was to fulfill the word he had spoken. Of those whom you gave me, I have lost not one. It says in the Mirror version, just when Jesus said, I am, they stumbled backwards and they fell to the ground. He asked them again, who are you looking for? And they said, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus said, I already told you who I am. If it's me you're after, let the others go. And he said this to confirm to his disciples that he would protect them, so none of them would be implicated. But what happens? What happens here? Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's servant and cut off his right ear. The servant's name was Malchus. And so Jesus said to Peter, put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? And so the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews arrested Jesus and they bound him. First, they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. And it was Caiaphas who had advised the Jews that it would be expedient that one man should die for the people. Do you remember this prophecy prior in other scripture where Caiaphas actually says this? It would be expedient that if one man dies for the people. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Who could it be? Maybe John? And since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside at the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl who kept watch at the door and brought Peter in. And the servant girl at the door said to Peter, "You also are not one of this man's disciples, are you?" And he said, "I am not." Now the servants and the officers had made charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. And the high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, "I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." And when he had said these things, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If what I said is wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said is right, why do you strike me?" Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas, the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing there warming himself, and they said to him, "You also are not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Did I not see you in the garden with him?" Peter again denied it, and at once the rooster crowed. Remember this, guys. We get another story about the absolute bitter sadness Peter felt as the own immediate prophecy comes true. He will deny me 3 times. And sure enough, he does, and the rooster crows. What a scene to play out right here, right? In the bitter remorse, I think it says he cried, he wept bitterly. Can you imagine how hard, wept bitterly. There's no better way to say it. It would have felt immense pain. Like you betrayed Jesus, You denied him 3 times. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the governor's headquarters. I've walked this path, guys. It's surreal to be there in person and have these scenes play out in the locations where this went down. So it was early morning. They themselves did not enter the governor's headquarters so that they would not be defiled, but could eat the Passover. So Pilate went outside and said to them, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not doing evil, we would not have delivered him over to you." Pilate said to them, "Well, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put anyone to death." This was to fulfill the word that Jesus had spoken to show by what kind of death he was going to die. So Pilate entered his headquarters again, and he called Jesus, and he said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did the others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have delivered you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting, that I might not be delivered over to the Jews. But my kingdom is not of the world." Then Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. And for this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" John 18:36 in the Mirror version says this: "My kingdom has nothing in common with the political or religious systems of this world. It does not originate out of their structures. If it did, my subordinates would fight for me and resist my handover to the Jews." Pilate said, "So you are a king?" Jesus replied, "You say that I am a king. My destiny was to be born in the flesh, and for this purpose I have come into the world to bear testimony to the truth. Everyone who recognizes their true origin hears my voice. The truth about mankind's authentic sonship and the image and likeness of the invisible Father of the human race is evidenced in me and confirmed in my work redeeming the human race from the futile ways they inherited from their fathers." Pilate then asked him, "What is truth?" And without giving him a chance to respond, he went outside again to the Sanhedrin and said to them, "I find no cause for any accusation in this man." Pilate says to him, "What is truth?" And after he said this, he goes back outside to the Jews and tells them, "I find no guilt in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. So do you want me to release to you the king of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a murderer and a robber. So that wraps John chapter 18, guys. John chapter 18 wraps right there. All right. Oh, it says right here in the Mirror version, they shouted back, "No, not this one, but Barabbas." Barabbas was a Jewish freedom fighter, probably the leader of the band, which included the other two who were crucified with Jesus. So think about that. Think about that. Barabbas and his boys all set to be crucified, but Barabbas goes free, Jesus goes in. And there's a lot of symbolism to that, right? The people choosing Barabbas over Jesus. But how cool. We're moving through it, guys. We're moving through it. John chapter 18.